Hey guys, it's Britt. If you read the title, you know what this is. So I'm finally gonna be talking with some about some exciting stuff with you guys. So you guys know I write for Weird Mask zine run by Matt at Paperback Junkie, but short stories and novels and novellas are completely different monsters, and I am finally happy enough to talk with you guys about my debut novel that will come out sometime this year. The title is Echoes of the Revolution, for reasons that will become obvious from the first chapter reading, but it is a blend of historical fiction and contemporary, because we know I love historical fiction or just historical things in general, and I mean, I like a good contemporary. So, yeah. Um, I wrote a synopsis for just for this video. It's not the final synopsis. Another thing is this is still in beta, so even the first chapter does need some work put into it. I know that it's far from perfect, but I'm comfortable enough to at least read it in its current state to you guys. So there's that. Um, there's some setting things. Um, the there's some accent things going on in this chapter that I will not attempt to be doing because I want you guys to concentrate on the content of the words and not the accent. UK readers, this takes place in Yorkshire, but obviously I'm an American. I'm going to work on replacing some of the American words that I currently have in there with something more fitting to UK grammar. So, sorry about that. But, here is the synopsis. I'm also reading off my screen, so, um, here's the synopsis that I wrote up. Uh, Some souls are meant to collide. Branson is a recovering bulimic who longs for a connection, but fears it. Maddie and Helen are a husband and wife whose marriage is on the brink of collapse. Megan is a Parisian who longs for a fresh start. It is dreams that connect them, and dreams that could tear them all apart if they don't figure out these glimpses of the past. So, that's the synopsis that I wrote up for you guys. And if you are comfortable with some mentions of eating disorder stuff, please stay for the chapter reading. If you're not so comfortable with that, I understand. But I wanted to know, I wanted people to know that there is that topic because I know that that can be a sensitive subject to some. But with that out of the way, here is the first chapter. Chapter 1. Branson. Fire burned at the edges of his dreams. Smoke swirled and painted phantom figures who were blurred and transparent until the flames crackled. The blaze ebbed and flowed until they gave way to a different sound. Chants and cheers. Light consumed everything, while the world came alive. Pardon, monsieur et mademoiselle. A man reached out for Branson's arm and gestured towards toy guillotines. Would you care to purchase one? No. A blonde woman clutched Branson's arm tighter. Merci beaucoup. Her hand trembled, and he placed his over hers to steady her and hide the nerves. Cries continued from the crowd, increasing in hostility the closer they neared the center square. Somewhere in the back of his mind, Branson knew this place. But sometimes images were hazy and left gaps as if they were holes in a forgotten memory. L'étranger, the foreigner. Austrian scum, death to the bitch. Vive la révolution. Long live the revolution. Branson had watched this play out since childhood. Only now he recognized himself hidden among the crowd. The woman beside him choked back tears. Both watched a lady dressed in white be led in on a cart. She was accompanied by a priest, but he seemed ignored. A white cap almost covered her gray hair, sheared short enough to expose her neck. The simple gown looked aberrant for an execution. Men dressed in dark uniforms with long coattails and dark triangular hats adorned with a single feather. Though color blindness plagued his dreams and the waking world, he could wager a guess. Blue? Red? Both? Women's skirts flared out over their hips, contrasting their not quite hourglass torsos. Drums sounded as the cart rode past, and his wife beside him muffled a sob into his chest. A connection that only existed in dreams. Branson had little else to go on. Not even a name. Just the sensation and an otherworldly connection. It could have been his imagination, but he swore the woman in the cart blew a kiss. Not to him, no. To his companion. Don't look, he whispered, her face hidden from view as he held her. The angular blade at the center of the square gleamed in the afternoon sunlight. Guards led the gray-haired woman up the steps. He glanced at the woman in his arms. She began to utter a prayer. Her tears soaked through from his vest and onto his shirt. Branson's hand found the small of her back and whispered sweet nothings in a vain attempt to drown out the merriment of the crowd as the blade fell with a clatter. A man displayed the woman's head to the crowd, and his wife fainted in his arms. And then there is a page break. So this is a scene change. The rooster crowed. Why can't you be normal and have an alarm like the rest of humankind? Stacy's arms tightened around him, and Branson chuckled as the bird called again. I warned you last night. You said you didn't mind being up early. You should be used to it anyway. He rolled over to face her. Stacy's face buried in a pillow. Dark hair contrasted the blondes from the dream. Not this early. Sorry, love. He kissed her cheek, a gesture that only furthered the guilt knotted in his stomach. It wasn't a lie, and though Branson felt little romantic attachment, it didn't stop him from affection. This often came back to bite him later, as such gestures sent mixed signals. Stacy would be no exception. With a yawn, he shifted into an upright position. Stay in bed a little longer, she protested, as she pressed her lips to the nape of his neck. We waited so long for this. Branson frowned. Stacy wasn't wrong. Up until this point, the two of them had exchanged cigarettes, phone numbers, and forbidden, childish notes in rehab. You know the rules, Stacy. No relationships. He shut his eyes and sighed before he forced himself to pull away and paw at the floor in search of abandoned boxers and pajama bottoms. We're already breaking the rules, she cooed in his ear. Why not break a few more? I don't break my own rules. Weren't you the one who said rules are like people and made to be broken? He wanted to share her crush, but wasn't the type of man to harbor romance beyond flings. There was an undeniable attraction, though any feelings beyond that seemed impossible. One-night stand? Fine. Perfect, even. Anything that could remotely lead to any sort of romantic attachment? That was off limits. The mattress squeaked as Stacy shifted. He glanced at the clock. 6:30 a.m. Helen would be here in a half hour to make breakfast, in spite of his insistence that he could handle it. Come on, I can get you home before. The lock clicked downstairs. Fucking hell. He walked into the bathroom, hair a mess, as usual. Nothing a cap wouldn't fix. All his dark blonde waves stuck out in different directions. His cheeks needed a shave. Time for the goatee to come back now that he had access to a decent razor. Choices he was now free to make. No more rules to please other people. If he wanted to put 3 sugars in his coffee, he could. Choices, both exhilarated and terrified. Branson half expected someone to walk into his own bathroom to make sure he pissed and not purged. Hell, while in treatment, he wasn't even allowed to flush his own toilet. Outpatient life was strange, but it was good to be back on the farm. Branson, Helen called from downstairs. You up? Yeah, Helen, I'll be right down. Once out of the bathroom, he pulled on a shirt and tossed an extra to Stacy from the unpacked suitcase. What should I do? Stacy stared at him, wide-eyed. Come to have breakfast, I reckon. Branson shrugged and tucked a cigarette behind his ear. Helen won't be mad? No. Branson watched as she pulled on the t-shirt. She'd put on quite a bit of weight. When they'd first met, she'd been a little more than a walking skeleton. Now, she looked healthy. She was one of those choices that terrified him. A recovering anorexic and a bulimic sleeping together? He'd booked himself a one-way ticket to relapse. No, they were stronger than that. And this was a one-and-done deal. Wasn't it? Branson glanced at her again, curves in all the right places, and a brilliant pair of baby blue eyes that longed for just one more night. She might roll her eyes, though, he warned. She's pretty good at that. No bark and no bite. Not to worry, love. With a wink, he slid a lighter into his pocket before heading downstairs. You know the rule is to eat at 7, yeah? He joked as Helen poked her head out from the kitchen, eyes like a hawk and a tone that would sting like a bloody bee. Yes, but it takes time to actually make your meals, you know. She marched over and patted his cheek once before she noticed the cigarette. Helen huffed and pulled it out from behind his ear. If you really must smoke, you can do it after you've finished your meal. Nicotine suppresses your appetite. Now sit. She pointed to a chair at the table before. Her attention returned to the stove. Helen glanced up as Stacy tiptoed down the stairs, the squeak of the middle step betrayed her. Is someone with you? She turned her attention to the living room. No. Branson pulled on his jacket. Let's start that again. Sorry, I just blinded you guys. No. Branson pulled the jacket that he tossed carelessly onto one of the chairs the night before. It's the ghost of my bulimic past. I've locked him in the bathroom. Helen sighed and shook her head. Where do you think you're going? To feed the chickens. All right. Helen sighed and glanced out the window towards the coops. Bring back eggs if they aren't all going to the diner. Will do. And, oh, Ellie? Helen... Will do. Oh. I'll get this right one day, guys. Will do. And oh, Ellie! Her nickname, only a select few were permitted to use. Go easy on the girl. Her name's Stacy. I'm not supposed to get involved with anyone. Helen's hushed tone screamed he was in for one hell of a lecture. Branson, you've just come out of treatment. I really don't want to have to put you back in there. You won't. He bowed and flashed her a cultish grin. I've seen the error of my ways. Helen opened her mouth to further scold him, but if she said anything, he hadn't heard. She meant well, and if she didn't care, she wouldn't be here. He knew that. And even though he hated to admit it to himself, what he needed was routine. Branson couldn't blame her for worrying. This had been his second time in the past 5 years that he'd been in treatment. It seemed like he didn't take his own recovery seriously. But humor was his armor. And he and Helen had a complicated history. Branson reached for the door, but the flap of the cat flap brushed his foot, and when he glanced down, a gray, silky chicken sat on his foot, his personal favorite. Oh, I know you're hungry! He scooped the hen up and stroked her back the way one might pet a kitten. Helen scoffed from her place at the stove. I still can't believe you let them inside. They get cold. It's nearly winter. They're food, Branson, not pets. I just want to give them the best lives I can, no matter how short. He gasped and adjusted the bird in his arms. Helen turned around and threw a dish towel in his general direction. Go and feed them then, so I can feed you. Yes, ma'am. He rolled his eyes and marched out to the coop. Chickens were more than just livestock to him. An odd favorite animal to have, but he loved them. Right, love. Let's get everyone fed, yeah? He smiled at the coops and walked towards the barn to start off the morning. And then there is another page break. The 1950s style diner helped this small Yorkshire town thrive. He missed the delivery routine. The boxes of eggs were easy to balance in theory, but harder in practice. Branson had plenty of practice. When he got to the door, he knocked with his boot 3 times, his signature knock, to give the head chef enough time to make room so he could cut through the kitchen and get to the walk-in fridge. That you, Branson? Scottish brogue cut through the air. The one and only? 3rd shelf to the right. You got it, boss. Amongst the hustle and bustle of the kitchen, a measuring cup read out how much was being poured. What Dav, the head chef, lacked in sight, he made up for in impeccable hearing and organization. Everything in the kitchen had its place, neat and tidy. Branson whistled as he walked into the fridge. The cold hit him right away. This was by far the worst part of the job. It's put away, safe and sound. Now was the time to go sit and get a meal. Mr. Foodmate, really, stuff they serve in treatment is bloody rubbish. Cloudy eyes met his. A rare smile from the head chef was one of the best rewards he could have hoped for. Well, why don't you sit your ass down in a booth? You'll be back to your old self in no time. If it had come from anyone else, Branson might have been offended, but this was Dav. His family had been doing business with him since the diner first popped up, a year or so after he was born. Right then, mate, I'll take you up on that. Branson? He paused mid-step towards the back door. It's good to see you. Branson's shoulders slumped. It was statements like those that made this type of things weird. He didn't want to be missed. He wanted to feel normal, to not be looked at with sad smiles and pats on the back. Nobody ever meant any harm, yet everyone knew. Of course, his employers knew what went on, and he was lucky to have friends come and keep up the work while he was in treatment. It's good to see you too. A sudden sense of anxiety washed over him at the idea. In order to eat waffles, he'd have to actually sit down and eat. Of course, he could order them for takeaway, but he didn't want to raise suspicion, and he couldn't avoid eating in public forever. It was just part of the recovery process to eat alone in public, not scurry off to purge. Baby steps. It's just the diner. You've done this thousands of times. You'd think he'd be used to eating in public. Quite the opposite. All the pressure was on him now to do everything by himself. He had family and friends to support him, sure, but here, in a public setting, was the loneliest thing in the world. His heart pounded in his chest, pulse quickened, and he had to lean against the wall to steady himself. Get it together, you stupid git. It's waffles. No need to panic. Relax. Deep breaths. Branson pushed open the back door and walked to the entrance of the diner to get himself a seat. And that's the first chapter, guys. Let me know what you think. And I am super excited to share more of this process as I go and introduce you to some more of the characters. Yeah, I'm super excited about this, guys. Like, I really am. But I have kept you for long enough. So if you survived the reading of that chapter, I know I stumbled a bit. Apologies. But I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye for now.